Thing I'd ask is that you speak up
Okay.
a little bit louder.
Do you want me to look at you or the camera?
You can look at me. It's like I
Okay.
said, it's pretty informal.
Okay.
And if Ryan has an issue, he can talk to me about it.
Great.
I'll put that in there.
Great.
Okay. Let me just start my stopwatch here and make sure we're on time. Okay. So, pretty simple start. So, what do you do here at Chico State?
My name is Dr. Zach Justice. I am an assistant professor in communication studies, and that includes an assignment to frequently teach the course in freedom of speech. I'm also the faculty coordinator for the Chico Great Debate.
Awesome. And we just had the great debate, and I heard it went very well.
Yeah, the student staff was really outstanding.
Awesome. So, now, what brought you to Chico State over other places?
Well, this is home for me. My parents live 30 miles from here, and my in-laws live 4 hours from here. So it's conveniently located. It's very much home. I love the community, and I love the campus.
Now, do you plan on staying here, or do you envision yourself moving? Because I know that you're up for tenureship soon, so I believe you'd be staying.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm always interested in other opportunities as they present themselves on other campuses and organizations. So I try and keep an open mind about all that stuff. At the same time, I have deep roots here.
Now, as I've told you, this is for Ryan Guy's Intercultural Communication course, CMST 235. It's all right. Go ahead if you need to answer it, because this can all be edited out.
Hey Sue, you gonna be in until 12:30? Okay, I'm in the middle of something. I'll probably be down like 15. Cool, bye.
Yeah.
She's the worst.
Oh man. So moving on. Now I know that you had said, and I've taken. You teach freedom of speech, CMSD 452. Now, as we talked about in the class, and I'm sure you have, hate speech is something that happens in the United States. And can you explain in simplistic terms, it is protected, right?
Yeah, hate speech is really interesting because in our everyday vernacular, we talk about hate speech as if that's a real legally designated thing, when in fact it isn't. Hate speech is protected just the same as all other forms of speech are protected, and that's what allows people to say all of the vile things that they do on internet forums and outside the funerals of people who have died in combat.
Now, at Chico State, we see, that there's always hate speech, and along with that there is, of course, racism and prejudice and stereotyping. Why do you believe that stereotyping and racial prejudice still exists within a campus setting?
Well, one of the things that makes universities interesting is that they bring together people from all different walks of life and from all different areas. And so people come here with baggage of all of those life experiences that they have had. And people come here with their prejudices, and they come here with their experiences. And sometimes this is an enriching environment in which people are able to move beyond those things. Sometimes it's a reinforcing environment where you may have a predisposition about a group of people, and then even though it may be inaccurate, then that gets reinforced in your time that's here. One of the nuances about prejudice is that it doesn't just end up coloring how we think about the world, and historically it ends up coloring how we experience the world. So if you have a stereotype about men or women or people from Vietnam or African Americans, oftentimes you only process the information that reinforces that stereotype and simply eliminate the other pieces from your experience. So that's one of the reasons it makes prejudice so hard to break, even in a campus environment that most of us would like to think is open and accepting.
Now, you are a part of the university as well. And I've asked this question to the other interviewees who have all been students. But as a teacher, I mean, have you dealt with yourself being stereotyped because of your involvement at this university? Are there certain things that come with that?
I would say that there's a predisposition among most people that university professors are predominantly liberal, and that's statistically that's accurate, and I think that in a lot of people's individual experience that plays out. And then that's mainly been manifest. I do a lot of outreach work for the Great Debate, including to a lot of conservative groups. And then it's taken a little bit of effort oftentimes to get them to think that they can come and be a part of what happens on and around campus, and that it'll be a productive experience for them. And almost universally it ends up being so, that they come and they realize that different viewpoints are valued and that people like to hear different ideas. And so that's a stereotype about the campus that is perhaps statistically true, but isn't, as is with all stereotypes and statistical models, isn't entirely accurate. And I think that there are probably people, whether they be friends or students, certainly have that stereotype of us as professors. It's not one that we especially suffer from or anything like that. It's certainly not on par or even comparable to the other types of stereotypes that people are confronted with. So I don't want to make you think that then, woe is me or anything like that. That's really not how any of us think about that sort of thing. It's just a bit about the job that we should be aware of.
Yeah, and I've talked to many people, and there have been varying ideas between, sometimes people say that stereotyping is just helping someone to kind of categorize something, and other times, people are like, well, usually it's a negative, holds a negative connotation. Now, as a professor and a teacher, especially within, freedom of speech and other classes, have you ever noticed stereotyping that you can think of where it's been in the class that you've seen firsthand?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are lots of times when, and the most vibrant example of this is the tokenism that sometimes happens in classrooms, where when issues of race or gender or culture are brought up, then there is the expectation, especially among majority students that are there that are of a minority group that's the topic of discussion, then will chime in and somehow represent an entire group of people. And obviously that's inaccurate, puts those students in a incredibly uncomfortable position, and reinforces the stereotype that there is, let's say, one Latino experience or one black experience in America, when the experiences are as diverse as the people that make up any group, whether it be ethnic or gender-based.
Yeah, so would you say that most examples that you see of stereotyping result in a negative connotation, or kind of carry that where it's not a representation, or it's not to help categorize, or do you believe that that's always maybe there, just not apparent?
I do think that we oftentimes use stereotypes and patterns in order to categorize people. I mean, we as human beings our ability to recognize and patterns and to thematize them is one of the things that makes us sort of successful as a species. Oftentimes there are negative implications of that, and like you said, a significant chunk of stereotypes are negative ones that then end up impacting people's lives negatively. And oftentimes the use of stereotypes is done out of laziness rather than out of genuine interest, where it's a quick and easy way to categorize people and information.
Now, to kind of switch topics just a little bit, right now, and because of your involvement with the university, and I know that you do work with the first year experience program, and you have these different outreaches. Do you feel that the university right now is doing a good job of combating stereotyping and racial prejudice on campus?
The most effective thing that people do to combat stereotypes is to bring people into direct contact with people of a group that's oftentimes stereotyped, right? So the negative attitudes about people in the LGBTQ community drop dramatically when the person that is being surveyed has actually encountered, knows, or perhaps is friends with someone. And the same thing is true with virtually all stereotype groups. So the best thing the university can do, and is trying to do in some areas, is to increase diversity on campus, because the diversity of worldviews, experiences, ethnic backgrounds, and every other demographic aspect, then it just, the carryover effect that has to destroying stereotypes is just dramatic, because you encounter people that don't fit with the mold that you have, and then that causes people to re-examine how it is that they've traditionally viewed the world.
Yeah. And I agree definitely that the university through many programs has done a good job of identifying and trying to combat racial prejudice and stereotyping, as Malcolm and Ryan said. So I also have a question. Let's say that you had a fresh freshman coming into the campus. What would be your advice for if they encounter stereotyping or racial prejudice, what to do then? What do you think is the best advice you could give them?
Well, it's not so much hypothetical. We actually deal with this sort of issue regularly, and it doesn't even have to do with just first-year students. And sometimes we were dealing with some issues with even some graduate students in previous semesters. And the best advice that we can usually give people is to talk about that in whatever environment they feel comfortable processing through that information. Sometimes that's a classroom. Sometimes that's a classroom where that happened. But at other times, that is through one of the resources that is here on campus. And the Cross-Cultural Leadership Center, which is in Merriam Library right across from where First Year Experience is a great resource. And we've used their expertise and welcoming environment they create to help us deal with a number of situations that we've had as a department, and they also helped us prepare our instructors for the great debate this semester where the topic was diversity and discrimination. So there are all sorts of different resources on campus that deal with cultural issues, sexual issues, ethnic issues, and it's important to get people connected. And that's not to say that then we shouldn't be dealing with that, right? Like, I think it's a terrible thing that oftentimes we do as professionals, where when somebody comes to us with that sort of thing, we immediately pass it off onto some other organization. Oh, dealing with issues of discrimination or promoting diversity, that's not part of my job. Thank God there's this other group on campus that deals with that, so I don't have to. It's a collaborative effort, but it's oftentimes in the best interest of the student to get help and talk through that with us as professors, and then to get help and talk through that with other people who have sometimes faced similar challenges. And so having a multifaceted approach to that is the best advice that I can give to anybody, whether they are first semester freshmen or a graduate or a finishing graduate student.
Yeah, and on that note, when you talk about the advice that you give, is there, as a professor, as a teacher, is there a, whether you want to call it, I know it's in your syllabus, but what do you expect when it comes to that stuff in the classroom? Do you make sure to let people know, especially because in freedom of speech and other classes where views can get heated or very emotional,
Right.
What do you remind students of, or how do you tell them, hey, you need to make sure to watch? What do you do in that situation?
That's a really great question, and there's really a tension sometimes between trying to promote the civility that is oftentimes at the backbone of productive discussions, and at the same time being sensitive to a diversity of viewpoints, experiences, and perspectives. The easiest way to sort of put this into a synopsis is and I think lots of us want students to be safe but uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And so if we have conversations in class in which everyone is in their comfort zone all the time, we're not doing a very good job of exposing people to new ideas and getting people to work together to expose each other to new ideas. But at the same time, you don't want students to feel like they are under attack or especially physically threatened. And so There are lots of different units and procedures on campus to help us deal with that, ranging from student judicial affairs to different codes of conduct that are on campus. Finding that balance is tough sometimes because I want people to be uncomfortable and thinking about new things in different ways, but at the same time, it has to be a good space for everybody. Safe but uncomfortable is the balance that I think most of us are striving for.
Yeah, and that's a really good explanation. We're kind of nearing the end of our little discussion here. And, kind of in conclusion, is there anything that maybe we've talked about, or that you just thought about, or that you have thought about that you would want in effect students who might see this to know that whether they have an issue or how to deal with it, or just something that may help them? Is there any last kind of ideas that you want to share?
So the university mission towards decreasing stereotypes, increasing diversity, in the time that I've been here and in the time I think before I was here, it comes in fits and starts. Sometimes there's a lot of institutional momentum. Hey, let's get this done. Let's get the right people in place. Let's have the right hiring practices. Let's make resources available for students that are confronting discrimination on campus. And then at other times there are other priorities that take precedent. And there's only so much time and only so much resource. And so there are certainly great groups on campus and great institutions on campus, but the best advice that I would give to anybody that's concerned about this issue or confronting these issues is to talk about it and get involved. And sometimes that takes the form of going to a group of people that are already in existence. Sometimes that takes the form of starting something new and starting a new dialogue. And if there's an issue that you're confronting and there is a classroom environment that's not productive, that ends up promoting those stereotypes instead of tearing some of those down, you need to bring attention to that. And sometimes that means talking to another professor. Maybe sometimes that means making a YouTube video where you vent your frustrations and then put that online. But if we don't talk about it, even when those conversations are uncomfortable, nothing ever changes. Those conversations are hard, but we've got to have them. And so, like I said, sometimes that's working with a group or people that are already on campus. Maybe that means starting something new. But the best ideas and the best progress with that come from students. They don't come from us as professors. So sometimes you got to drag us kicking and screaming forward because everybody's overworked and has a lot to do. But I think we would all agree those conversations and that movement is important. So let's work together to make that happen.
All right. Well, I'm going to cut it off there. That was
Great.
a great ending. Yeah, once again, I appreciate